copy that. What we have now as reference groups is we have a much broader range of reference groups, and they are updating their appearance and their view and their every minute of the day, 24 hours a day. And that cultural sort of shift in terms of speed has actually led to this idea that we're always wanting newness. And I'm not saying social media is the only reason for this, but what I'm saying is it's part of that cultural shift that's happening. So to get to the solution, my brain isn't big enough, and if it was big enough, and if I had a solution for that, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd have an island somewhere in the Bahamas, I think. You know, I don't know what the answer is. But I think the thing that I'd just like to finish off of, just around consumers, is we do need to highlight that the fashion industry is built on this idea that we have segments. We have lots of different types of consumers, and there'll be consumers that turn up in Blue Rinse who are really, really ethical, really green, and that's why they go there. But there's also consumers that will be going there because they really want to be fashionable and trendy within their segment. Nothing to do with being green. So we need to recognise the fact that we have lots of different segments, and lots of different people have different attitudes about how they're buying and what they're buying in that sort of fashion process. So I haven't given an answer on how to do it, but Liv will do it.
No. Well, I would just like to say, to start out with, that one of the biggest issues from the fashion industry side is actually the consumerism on fashion goods have gone down already massively. So they have, I'm just saying, consumerism of fashion goods have actually in the past few years since the government voted in, since the Brexit was voted in, there has been a massive drop in the consumerism and in terms of what we believe in the consumerism. And there is a new trend happening, especially if you start around the independent retailers, that's saying that they are feeling now that consumers are much more looking back at what do we have already in our wardrobe? How can we add in few pieces of newness to still feel we are fresh looking and we're having clothes that is helpful, warm enough, getting us through rainful weather, stormy weather, sunny weather, I don't know. And same time without doing as have previously happened, where much more in this country and obviously also in other countries, where every season change you go out and you actually buy an entire new wardrobe. There's now come more consciousness into adding pieces in throughout the year. And consider this, it means retailers and businesses on the high street have suffered massively on these terms, and they've actually been having to look at, like, how do we keep updating this, how can we keep doing this? And there's been a huge negative approach towards bloggers and influencers for the whole, they get sponsored to do one ad and then get a piece on, and then where does it go afterwards? Into their wardrobes, or is it thrown away, or how's it doing? Because it's creating an unhealthy look of how we should sustain the industry and how we sustain the planet. So I think there is already a massive trend towards leading these consumerisms over in the right directions and taking them the right directions. Where we need to consistently go is, like, we can't say, yes, it's happening the right direction, now we're finished with this subject, let's move on to something else. No, we have to remain in development. It's almost like when we got the telephone, okay, great, that was a measurement. Now we have a smartphone. From the telephone to the smartphone, there's been so many generations who's working on improvement of the telephones, improvement of the communication that we use, improvement of how. And even though iPhone came out with a new phone on Friday, they're still improving till the next phone they're doing, till the next project, to do and become a better company, a better company in terms of how they're working sustainable, how they're working with different things, but also how they're providing the means of tomorrow and the demand that they have to follow for tomorrow, which is and also a consumer who's starting having new ideas of how they want to go, whether they're deciding to go more slow fashion in terms of how they're using more digitalizations, all these measurements, or if they're going into even heavier usage of these things. And it's the same trends and the same mechanisms that's happening in the fashion industry, and that reflects in the fashion industry because it is all connected with other industries. That's what we always have to remember.
I found your question really, really interesting actually, because it's one that we've been asking ourselves at Blue Rinse in like the past 2 weeks. So we've been talking about it quite a lot. How do you encourage reduced consumption but still operate as a business? So it's really difficult. I feel like a lot of people where I work, we have this ethical concern. We try and present ourselves as this sustainable fashion brand, but we operate within a system that is encouraging consumption. So we always ask ourselves, like, is it ethical for us to be promoting new things all the time? Should we be merchandising our shops in terms of having new trends and Christmas trends and holiday trends and festival trends and, just encouraging this constant consumption of new things all the time? So one of the outcomes of that, we really spoke about our remade range, which is where we take things that we can't normally sell as they are and we'll rework them. So it's in effect, it's like producing garments. In the past 10 years, that's kind of taken different forms. So we stock that line in Topshop. About 10 years ago, we used to be really trend-led with that, and we'd every season we'd have about 30 different designs, and it'd get updated every couple of weeks. In the past 10 years, we've kind of reduced that, and we've really looked at that range and thought, how can we move away from this model and stay true to our brand values? So now we're quite strict in the things that we produce. We always ask ourselves the question, why are we producing this, and is it going to have a life after it's been in a shop or been in Topshop or been in our own shops afterwards? So I think, we're always asking ourselves why we're producing things and how can we move away from this fast fashion model, even though we're working within it. I think we've seen a massive growth in that remade range from our customers because they really respond to it. I think we've changed from moving towards trend-led things towards things that are at a higher price point, but will work in different seasons and a higher quality, and more work goes into them. So although we're taking away sales, the volume of sales, we're getting the money still brought in. So I think that could be one alternative just from my point of view at Blue Rinse. But I found that really, really interesting.